turn to Genesis 22. We're going to do some principles here. Amen? The faith test. How many's ever had your faith tested? Guess what? Every last one of you have. Every day. Get your Bibles out. Turn to Genesis chapter 22. I don't have it up here because the Lord gave it to me after I've already written it. So this is just up here. Ready? Genesis chapter 22. Verse 1. And it came to pass after these things that God did tempt or test Abraham, and said unto Abraham, and he said, Behold, he said unto him, Abraham. And he said, Behold, here I am. And he said, Take now thy son, thy only son, Isaac. Think about this now. Isaac is the only begotten son through Sarah, the promise. Whom thou lovest, and get thee in the land of Moriah, and offer him there for a burnt offering upon one of the mountains, which I will tell thee of. And Abraham rose up early in the morning, and sat on his ass, and took 2 of his young men with him, and Abraham and Isaac his son, and clave the wood for the burnt offering, and rose up and went into the place where God had told them. And on the third day, look at this symbolism. On the third day, Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw the place afar off. And Abraham said unto his young men, Abide ye here with the ass, and I and the lad will go yonder and worship, and will come again to you. In other words, we're going up on the mountain. Me and my son Isaac are going up on the mountain. God's already told me to kill him. But we're going to go up on this mountain, and we're both coming down. That's faith. You told me to kill him. You told me to put him in your hands, give him to you. And I know, you know what the Bible says in Hebrews, that he saw in a vision that God was going to take care of him. And Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering and laid it upon Isaac his son. Again, a picture of Calvary, Jesus carrying his own cross. And he took the fire in his hand and the knife, and they both went together, and they climbed the mountain. Jesus climbed Mount Calvary. And Isaac spake unto Abraham his father, and he said, My father. And he said, Here I am, my son. And he said, Behold the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering? And this is so prophetic. I don't know if Abraham saw it this way when he said it, but it was so prophetic when he said this. And Abraham said, My son, God will provide himself a lamb for a burnt offering. So they went both of them together. And they came to the place where God had told them of. And Abraham built an altar there and laid the wood in order about Isaac his son, and laid him on the altar upon the wood. Again, a type of Calvary. And Abraham stretched forth his hand and took the knife to slay his son. And the angel of the Lord called unto him out of heaven and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he said, Here I am, or here am I. And he said, Lay not thy hand upon the lad, neither do thou anything unto them, for now I know that thou fearest God, seeing thou hast not withheld thy son, thy only son, from thee. And Abraham lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, behind him a ram caught in the thicket by his horns. And Abraham went and took the ram and offered him up for a burnt offering in the stead of his son. And Abraham called the name of that place Jehovah-Jireh, as it is this day, in the mountain of the Lord it shall be seen. Or in other words, here's how it is. This is a compound word. God sees the need and God provides. That's it. God sees the need and God provides. Our sister just told us about how the hotel room, she goes and gets in the tickets, or the price of the hotel room is half price, or she's getting tickets somewhere and all of a sudden the prices drop. God sees the need and God provides. She also talked about she doesn't feel like she's looking at it. She does. That's great. But look as bad as some of these people. Again, God sees the need and God provides. Some of y'all in here right now need to understand that you're serving the great God Jehovah, that he sees your needs and he will provide. It's guaranteed, it is a promise that he will take care of you. So let's look at this thing now. Just for a minute, I want to kind of use Genesis 22 as a springboard for this thing. If we're going to live a life of faith, if we're going to live a life that pleases God, and remember, without faith it's impossible to please God. So if we're going to live a life that pleases God, and I'm not talking about seed faith. I believe in seed faith. Honestly, I really believe this. If what you got in your hand will not meet the need, then it's obvious it's a seed. Amen. I believe that. And we planted and God will bless that. Amen. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about all of a sudden God's a cosmic sugar daddy and I pay my ticket at the window and God takes care of everything. That's not what that's not what faith is. In order for us to live a life of faith, faith must be challenged and not pampered. Here it is. And he said, take now thy son, thy only son, Isaac, whom thou lovest, and get thee to the land of Moriah, and offer him for a burnt offering upon one of the mountains, where I will tell thee of. Now he's been waiting for this son for years. He finally gets this son. The promise is coming. Even God said, Ishmael is not the child of the promise. It's the child of the flesh. The child of the promise is Isaac. Now I want you to take Isaac up on this mountain, your prized possession, your pride and joy, your flesh and bone, the one that you love, the one that is your only begotten. I want you to take him and I want you to take him on this mountain and I want y'all to just have a good time. He said, take him up on the mountain. You got to understand now, if there's going to be a burnt offering, he's going to have to tie him, put him on the altar, slit his throat, and burn him. Faith, see, that's a challenge. Faith must be challenged and not pampered. Number two, faith is not a life absence of conflict. It's a life of conquest in the conflict. And Abraham rose up early in the morning and saddled his ass and took two of his young men with him, and Isaac and his son, and clave the wood for the burnt offering, and rose up and went into the place where God had told them. And on the third day, Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw the place afar off. God ain't changed his mind. For 3 days he's walking and wondering, was God really, is this real? Am I really supposed to be doing this? Is this the deal? Is this the way it's supposed to be? God, you told me he was going to be the seed of promise. And now you tell me, take him on a mountain, tie him up, slit his throat, and burn him after he dies. Wow. But see, again, he keeps going, he keeps going. Abraham said to his young men, abide ye here with the ass, and I and the lad will go yonder and worship, and we will come again to you. My faith is not a life absence of conflict, but it is a conquest in the conflict. There's things I wish God would just do. Matter of fact, Mighty Army yesterday, I think it was yesterday, Mighty Army, it says the seasons that you hate the most, the seasons that hurt you the most, are the ones that you learn the most in. It's when the times you don't understand, the times you can't figure it out, the times you've got to trust God, because if you don't trust God, it's not going to work out. And so you trust God and say, God, this makes no sense to me. I don't understand it. I wish I could wave a wand and it goes away. But I find out if I'll leave my hands off of it, number one, it'll get fixed faster. You seen that? I've seen a sign in the garage years ago. It says $5 an hour if we fix it, $10 an hour if you watch, and $20 an hour if you help. Well, God, we try to help God out of all our problems. We can fix it, God. Yes, you can fix it. You wouldn't need God. So faith is not like absence of conflict. Here he is. He's got to take his son up. And you think of conflict as a battle. Don't think it was a battle in his mind and in his heart to take that son up and offer him up unto God, a burnt sacrifice. There's a living offering following him up the hill. And the son was 17 years old. Isaac's an old man, so the son could have taken him if he wanted to, but his son was obedient to the father's will. Again, a type of Calvary. So now, the third thing. Faith that has not been tested cannot be trusted. Does anybody go up in a plane? Before I went up in that plane and jumped out of that parachute, don't you think I made sure that was a tested parachute? I'd hate to jump out and all of a sudden the guy go, uh-oh. That's right. Do you know your best man, your best? As a matter of fact, in World War II, the paratroopers, their best friend was the guy that folded their shoes. That's right. So, look, when I jumped out of that door, the first thing I felt was I felt weightlessness for the very first time like that ever. The second time I felt was totally helpless. There was nothing I could do. There's nothing to grab on. I'm watching the plane fly this way, and I'm going that way. And for a brief moment, my mind said, did they check that shoe? The guy said, trust me. So what did I do? I trusted him. I said, one thing about it, if he messed up, he ain't getting out of it. Amen. So look, I remember I was at Mountain Power Boats. One of the supervisors came up to my office one day. He was crying. I said, what's wrong? He said, my wife's pregnant, and they did a scan on the baby, and it said the baby's brain is not developing correctly. There's fluid on the brain, and the brain is not developing correctly, and they recommended an abortion immediately. And he said, man, I don't know what to do. He said, this is killing me. He was crying, and I wrote this down on a piece of paper. Later, I made it in a little plaque and gave it to him. Faith that has not been tested cannot be trusted, Genesis 22. And I gave it to him. And every day he'd come up to me and say, man, it's not doing any better. Man, it's not doing any better. And we would agree together for that baby to be all right. And I remember one day he'd come up. He said, Precious, going to the doctor. Pray. Please pray. Please pray. I said, well, pray. We're going to believe this. Remember, faith that has not been tested cannot be trusted. He said, but now we've gone past where they said we should have aborted the baby. And we don't know exactly what God said. Trust God. Just hold on. He run upstairs to me. Run upstairs to me. He was jumping up and down. I said, what is going on, son? He said, the doctor just said our baby's brain has developed normally. Everything is fine. The baby's going to be cool. He said, I thank God that faith that has not been tested cannot be trusted. Our faith has been tested and we can trust it. And just a couple of years ago, I watched his son play football out on the field by the airport. God's got this. God's got this. So look, watch this now. Look. And he said, faith that has not been tested cannot be trusted. So he puts him up here, and he says, and it came to a place where God had told him up, and Abraham built an altar there and laid the wood in order, and bound Isaac his son and laid the wood on the altar, his son upon the wood. And Abraham stretched forth his hand and took the knife to slay his son. In the Hebrew construction, he weren't just going, are you ready, God? Do you really mean it? No. It meant literally, in the Hebrew construction, he was coming down when he was stopped. He wasn't standing there like this. He wasn't standing, he was like this coming down when he was stopped by the angel. So he was going to do it. And the angel Lord called him out of heaven and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he said, Here am I. And he said, lay not thy hand upon the lad, neither do any harm unto him. For now I know thou fearest God, seeing thou hast not withheld thy son, thy only son, from me. And Abraham lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, behind him was a ram caught in a thicket by his horns. And Abraham went and took the ram and offered up for a burnt offering in the stead of his son. And he called this place Jehovah Jireh. Now, let's see this.